Well, thank you. Yeah, great to be here with everybody. And this is a defining day, I think, in the world of golf instruction, and very excited to be part of it. I've known Ji Hay for many years, from the time we coached her and followed her career very closely. And when she told me what she was getting into, I thought, well, there's got to be something behind this. So, biomechanics is a buzzword now. It's like organic, right? It's in golf. And I think that one of the things from my standpoint is that it's probably misunderstood in many cases. Teachers use it, people try to understand it, but the great thing with Sportsbox 3D now is that you're bringing it to the masses. I always look at 3D analysis from a standpoint of it's almost like it's like an MRI. 2D is like an X-ray. Okay, you can sort of see certain things and you can guess certain things. And I think as teachers, we're intuitive and we know generally what's going on. But the fact of the matter is now you look at where the game is at, and the bottom line is what we want to help people get better quicker, and that's the society that we live in these days. And the great thing, it's a tool, and it'll never be able to replace the golf professional, because obviously a lot of it is how you communicate the information over to the individual. So I'm really excited because I really think this is sort of we're breaking a new frontier here. I've been around this game for a long time, probably not quite since Hickory, but I've been through all the different eras and I've seen what's going on. I remember clunking around a big old VHS camera years ago and what have you. And, they've obviously moved into little camcorders and, obviously force plates. We've looked at kinematic vests and so on. The great thing with this is one-stop shopping, which is going to be affordable. I think it's going to be a tool that every golf coach is going to want to use. But not only that, obviously other sports, as Phil Cheatham was saying, other sports and fitness and rehab, and it's unlimited really what this Sportsbox 3D golf in particular, we're starting here, but what it's going to be able to do in the future. And I'm really excited about it because, as I say, it allows us as teachers to get the information and to be able to provide that information to students, no matter what level of player they are, in order to get better. And the ability to be able to quantify things now it's tremendous. Obviously we've got launch monitors out now. We can see what's happening to the ball and we can tell what's happening to the club face, etc., etc. But now we can actually see what's taking place with the body, which is so important. And this goes right through the game, short game, putting and everything else that Sportsbox is going to get into down the road. So I'm really excited to be part of it. And to say I think it's a defining day in golf instruction. And to me, this is going to be part of every golf coach's, instructor's toolbox. But the interesting thing is actually watching somebody watching themselves in an avatar situation, because you're not worried about, hey man, I should have worn a different shirt, or it's funny when I'm sure the other coaches on the panel will agree. You look at your own golf swing, it's like, you've seen it so long, but you can't see the wood for the trees sort of thing. But the fact of the matter is, it's a whole different perspective on things when you can actually see an avatar working. And the great thing about it is that it's so simple to use. So it's not like it's a big deal. If you look at 3D for the most part, it's as Mike was alluding to, it's cumbersome. You put the markers on there, you're not sure if they're shifting, you're not sure if you're getting the right readings. The system's expensive. And the great thing is that, this is part of sort of improving not only coaches at my academies, but coaching around the world. Because look, if we're going to grow this great game, it's all about getting people to play better quicker and understanding what they have to do. And the great thing with Sportsbox 3D now is that we'll be able to sort of allude to the fact that, you can see what's taking place now. It's so much clearer. It really is very interesting to say watching an avatar versus watching 2D. 2D, yes, you get a picture, you get an image, but with a 3D approach, it's really incredible, I think. When you look at the way certain joints are moving, being able to ascertain how much shoulder rotation or upper torso rotation an individual has. And so it's, to me, it's a very easy step for coaches to be able to sort of move into the 3D world and give them an understanding, because, look, 3D's been around for a while, no question about it. I've been involved with it since the 90s. And it is something, when you look at it, it's the internal workings of the golf swing. When you look at a player, why does this player hit the ball so far? Why are they so accurate? And you can look at certain positions, say, well, they do this or she does that. But in the end, it's like, it's all about how you impart energy into a golf swing. And this is what, the 3D analysis will allow us to do. So to incorporate it in one's teaching, I think it's going to be pretty simple. And I think it's going to elevate the level of coaching around the world. And Sportsbox 3D is really sort of, I think, the start of this whole process.
Yeah, this year at the PGA Championship at Keo Island, I came off the range after a long day and saw my good friend Terry Rowles. And Terry came up to me and said, and Terry and I have had a great relationship probably since 2007, always pushing each other to learn more. And through Terry, I met Phil Cheatham, and I've known Mike Adams for a very long time as well, and obviously David. So Terry said, let me show you something. And I sat down and he showed me the kind of initial aspect of Sportsbox 3D and showing a player's swing. And it took me about 2 minutes before I got Jihei's number. And then I spoke to Jihei about 3 hours later. And look, to be honest with you, I haven't really been a part of or invested in many companies in golf because a lot of startups are just startups. And as soon as I saw this, I just knew all the other people had reached out to me trying to do different versions of this in a much more amateur fashion. They were. It was just something that I knew I had to be a part of. And then to meet, obviously, the team, Rich and Sam, and I've known Steph for a long time on tour. Jihei's incredibly impressive. It was just a no-brainer for me. And, I felt this way for a long time. I've always used 3D, but I've never done the 3D. I've had friends like Mark Bull, Phil Cheatham has done some of my players, to where I was using the biomechanics to do it as well, just because of, one, the time that it takes, the space that you need. And then, we're kind of the generals of the trenches, right? Like we're out on the road a lot, where the ability to do something like that is just not possible. And that's the thing, is that's at the highest level of the game, and it's still not possible. So this is benefiting professional players, but all the way down to amateur players, because a lot of amateur players, people who play golf are fairly smart, right? It's tough to afford golf if you don't have a decent understanding of certain school topics. So I think we get too much into the world of like keeping it simple and dumbing it down. And I think that's just why everyone becomes dumb, is because we dumb it down. We can use something like this that also connects into with how every human being will be doing this with, will have some ability to learn through visuals. And even just in a few lessons that I've used it with, there's been an aha when people have seen seen the, they've seen themselves, but then when they start to see the aspects of their hand path or things like that, they kind of clicks. And we've looked at these videos and TrackMan numbers for a long time. So I think it just very, very simply meshes a high level of information that helps us in our teaching, just in the most simple way to do it. I remember I did it the first time with Justin Rose. And from the time I started to the time I was able to show him, it took me less than 62 seconds. In the past, when we work with Mark Bull, about 45 minutes into it, we have to warm up again so he can hit a shot. So just to see the level of it, to know that Phil Cheatham was a huge part of it, was big to me as well, because he's one of the pioneers and the greats of biomechanics through all sports. So just when all those things aligned up, obviously I have the most respect for Mike Adams and Terry Rowles and David Leadbetter. So as soon as I saw that, it was just a complete no-brainer. And I hardly even had to convince my wife, who is the boss. So I'm glad to be a part of it. And I do agree. It's really cool to be sitting here on this call this morning in Las Vegas at the advent of something that's going to be pretty massive. I'd say the first impression was how accurate is it, because they've been, they've had everything connected to their body and to their golf club. So accuracy was everything. And, like I said, that was a big reason that when I first asked about Phil, that really made me feel great about it, because, as a pioneer, he takes his work very seriously, and that world of data and measurement, that's extremely important to people like him. So being able to use it, like, for example, the time that I used it with Lydia, we had been struggling when the wind was off the left. So behind the player's back, moving into them. And I think what happens is a lot of pros and amateurs as well, I think we're all human beings, so we all go through the same experience. They would say like certain shots were mental, and I've always believed that it was more environmental. So our ability to adapt to the situation outside of ourselves is kind of what separates humans, and is the reason that we're not extinct. So what we noticed is that obviously the time of the backswing was less, but there was less pivot, so the pelvis turned less. There was less shift into the right leg, so there was less sway, and then there was more lateral motion, which ended up in more extension and more side bend. And what we realized is that the feeling that she had of the wind off the left and she tried to hit the ball faster. So then we set it up downwind off the right, and that gave us really a perfect example of not just the numbers, but the feeling that she had to have. So into the wind now off the left, her feeling is to still approach that shot like the wind is down off the right. And she had 4 or 5 of those shots on the last 12 holes at the Olympics. And smashed every single one down the fairway, and said that she felt very uncomfortable, but knew that it was correct. And that's the thing, right? Like, in order to be successful, you just have to become comfortable with being uncomfortable, because uncomfort is fine, right? But it's also being able to use a tool to show and prove in a valid way that this is definitely going to be beneficial and helpful for you. So it's been, using it in the fairway bunker, using it in the rough. Like I said, you could just never do that before, because we were in a hitting bay, sometimes into a net, sometimes not into a net. And to me, that's like Navy SEALs practicing with blanks when they're going to be at war with real bullets. So this makes it more, to me, that makes the technology more important, that I can get a video in practice rounds off of downhill lies, uphill lies, different wind conditions, and just see how my player is environmentally changing to the situation. So once again, it's me being able to fall asleep easier at night, because I think all of us are good at our jobs, but a lot of times we probably lay there with a little bit insecurity on, like, were we too heavy in intuition there? And yes, it was working, but not exactly sure what changed in a measured way. So I like to sleep, and I don't sleep well all the time. And a lot of times it's connected to these people in my mind. So this is just another way to get a better sleep, which leads to better coaching. The four of us have worked really hard, but we've also been very fortunate. And, I remember what it was like when I was trying to build my business. And so the first 10 years, I was, at least 8 of those years, I was waiting tables on top of teaching golf. And, it's a great industry and we get to help people. But the problem is a lot of the technology up to this point has been very expensive. And some of it's almost like pretty much the same after taxes. That's what people would be spending their check on a device like that. So the one thing that I really, really like about this, from the idea of equality and giving everyone the same opportunity, is that this is going to really help a lot of young instructors and just instructors in general, because force plates, TrackMan, and a great AMM system, and that's 6 figures right there. And so some of us have been fortunate enough to be able to kind of get to that point where we could do all that. But man, if I was 25 years of age again, with the ability to use something like this, you know, I probably cost myself $30,000 in refunds because I'd given bad lessons. So I think that that's one of the things that really attracted me to this too, is it creates an equal playing field for everybody to have the same opportunity to use the same great technology to improve their students, but at a price that isn't gouging anyone. So that from, you know, that from a standpoint, like a holistic standpoint, is something that I really support with it as well. And just wanted to make that point, that it's pretty altruistic in many ways that we're able to do that, but also provide this high level of technology. There's been so many other things on the market over the years that pretend to do this, but they just dupe people who already, you know, don't need to spend money on things that aren't going to be helpful to their business.
Terry Rowles is one of my best friends, as is Sean and David Leadbetter. Phil Cheatham is also a close friend, and I've utilized his skills for many years. His mentor, Dr. Chuck Dillman, who used to be the biomechanist for the U.S. Olympic team, I was working with him 30 years ago, working with 3D. I have always looked for a better set of eyes. First, there was video. That was a better set of eyes. Then came TrackMan and the quad, giving us another better set of eyes. Then came the force plates. So now we understood how we put force into the ground. We understood they had video of what was going on, but there was no 3D going on. When I used 3D, the problem was it was very cumbersome, very expensive, and very time consuming. So you put a person on the 3D system, and an hour later you're looking at it and you're on to your next lesson. And so, you know, it wasn't accessible. The great thing about Sportsbox 3D, what it does, it is, number one, it is affordable. Number two, it is portable. You know, it's right there on your phone. And number three, it's quantifiable. It gives you all the information. You're no longer guessing, you're measuring, and you have real information right in front of you at the snap of your finger. It's right there. So there isn't anything better than this. I mean, this little piece of machinery called a phone has become a handheld computer, and it gives us everything. So no longer do we need a room to do it in. We can do it right on the tee. We can do it on the golf course. It's perfect. I mean, I cannot think of a better system than this. And to have the brain power behind it with Sam and Jihei and Stephanie, and then David, Terry, and Sean, and then Phil Cheatham, they've created a product that is going to transcend golf instruction. I'm pretty excited about this. Well, first of all, Terry and I believe in assessing, not guessing. That's why we measure everybody. And like I said, the better set of eyes, where, you know, 3D used to be cumbersome and intrusive. Now it's not. This, I believe, will end up replacing video. The simple reason it's giving you, it's like you can do, you got a camera going all around the person and shooting them from every angle, which you can do with what this does. I mean, it's instant feedback. The numbers are correct. It gives us, it's like looking underneath the hood and we can see everything. It's a phenomenal tool. I think that everybody who teaches golf should have it. I mean, this should be part of your toolbox, like David said. And once you start using this, all of a sudden, things become clearer and easier. It quantifies what you're seeing.
Well, I met Jihei in California right when she was talking to the company, and you know, we're kind of comparing ideas. As Sean said, there's lots of ideas out there about how, you know, we can use technology to make teaching easier. You know, Mike and I had kind of developed a software which was you know, able to help us with the teaching that we were doing, but having the ability to measure, you know, each swing and categorize it each time you hit a shot made it 1,000 times better. So immediately, you know, connected with the vision of what I saw in the golf business. And yeah, so from there, you know, the pace of development has been unbelievable. You know, the accuracy is incredible. And, you know, I'm very excited for golf. If you just take a 10,000 foot view and say, well, what does this do? I think, you know, we all have had a great life in this game. And I think you know, what we're trying to do is kind of grow the game, but grow the game through, you know, better information, more accessible improvements for golfers, because golf is hard and time is limited. So I think the ability to, you know, measure and, you know, almost create best practices through the fact that this is going to be available to so many thousand teachers. You know, we've already learned from the 200 that we've got involved, you know, different ways to look at, you know, similar things. And, you know, I'm super excited, you know, to learn from the, you know, almost like crowdsourced golf instruction, democratize it, as Phil said. And, you know, I think if you look at, I've learned so much from Mike Adams, David Leadbetter, Sean Foley, you know, but now if we start actually measuring things and making it available, then, you know, that's going to continue to help the golf industry as a whole. And, you know, eventually, you know, with technology, we get to know what things are, but we, you know, more importantly, I think, you know, we get to know what they aren't. And, you know, so we make the target a little bit smaller, and therefore we can concentrate our resources of instruction into a smaller and smaller area, you know, which is making all of our jobs easier, firstly, but it's also making the ability to communicate improvement more streamlined. And therefore, I think, you know, golf is going to get better, you know, with less guessing. Well, firstly, just imagine how easy it is for us to get access to the data now, because previously, you know, as everyone's mentioned, we'd have to get these, you know, world-class players whose time is constrained and what have you into a studio and, you know, spend an hour, you know, stuck in the same place. So now we can just film a swing and compare them, you know, accurately using Sportsbox 3D. So on Mark's podcast, he asked me to compare different players. So I used different metrics to kind of compare different styles. One example that we used was, you know, rotation. So, you know, part of the danger of new technologies over time is teachers tend to revert to the average and teach everyone the same thing. So we use rotation. You know, probably on the star player of the European team is Jon Rahm, and obviously probably the longest hitter on tour right now is Bryson DeChambeau. And so, you know, using a video in Sportsbox 3D and comparing them, we can obviously see two very long hitters with two very different ways of doing it. And so the ends of the spectrum, where Bryson was rotating his shoulders about 115 degrees, and Jon Rahm was, I think it was about 87. And so within that range fall probably all or, you know, at least probably 80 to 90% of tour players. And so if you're outside of those two ranges, there's probably something not good. But those were, you know, two really good examples of two people that were playing really well that week using a single variable. Of course, we got what we call 6 degrees of freedom, so we can measure movements as well as rotations, but that was the example I used.
I also love how you mentioned that you can look at the avatar and say, like, oh, that's Jordan Spieth, and know immediately just from the avatar, because it truly mimics the motion of the player.
Yeah, that was you know, very, very early. I think in April, Jihei and Stephanie went to a tournament, and it was when the avatar started working, and it was the most exciting early moment for us, is when they filmed, you know, a bunch of different players and you know, put it onto Instagram and said to the, you know, the public, whose swing is this? And it was Jordan Spieth, and, you know, immediately, like, the first comment was Jordan Spieth, and it was really distinctive and obvious who it was. And so that obviously was a very big boost to the team working in the background, that, you know, they're on the right track and it's accurate.